Alright, this is a blooming attempt for the variegated African violet. First thing we want to do is find the plant, animate the plant entirely, right? And blooms included. And then we go in and add the bloom stuff after the fact. So here's the variegated African violet. I'm going to double click on this to go into the prefab mode here. And then where we want to be is down in here, select the plant image. So here on the right hand side, there's a bloom stages piece in here. If there's not entries in here already, this will be 0, right, which is fine. And there's 2 blooms on this violet here, so I'm going to assume that these bloom maybe a day apart or 2 days apart. So, but they don't. They bloom 2 days apart from each other, and they're kind of independent of each other. So here we'll make 2 bloom stages. So enter 2 into this array, and then we just need an ID for each one of these. So click on the new button. We'll get a GUID for each of these things, and then these are the bloom objects. So we want a bloom object element 0, which is really, we're going to drag in the game object. So the bottom blooms, I'm going to say, come first, or at least are identified by this one. And then here for the second one, we create 1 bloom object and we drag in the top blooms. And that's it for this side. So really what's going to happen is we've identified 2 of these layers in here, 2 of these sprites essentially, which are the blooms. And then the other thing I'm going to do here is we're going to start out with neither of these showing. So I'm going to disable these 2 because as they bloom, what the game does when it turns it on is just turns on this checkbox, essentially making it active. So they're going to start out inactive, and then we've identified them here, and then we save this. We should be done with this piece. Then the next piece is to configure how often these bloom and how long they stay. And to do that, we come down to the known plant database, and the plant is already in there, so we can find it. Variegated African violet, here it is. And then down in this section, there is a bloom section here. So we want 2 entries in here. So this is just bloom 1, and the next one will be, we'll do it separately here. So I guess what we need are the IDs from those bloom stages. So I'm going to flip back over to that plant, variegated, click on the plant image. I'm going to copy the ID, this first ID here, and then we'll come back and get the next one when we do the second bloom. Known plant database, find our African violet here, find our blooms. So bloom number 1 is this ID here. I just clicked in here and I pasted it in. We can leave these empty. This is dependent. Checkbox here means that, like, if you have a bud first and then the bud turns into a bloom, you would make the second one dependent upon the first one. But these aren't like that. These are 2 independent blooms, so these both stay off. And then the next thing we're going to configure is these. So there's a range of blooming, right? Because it blooms between 3 and 5 days, for instance. So this is a random range, a random number of days is picked between these. So if we say that this plant will bloom every, let's just do that. Every 3 to 5 days it'll bloom. And then when the bloom comes up, it'll last between 3 and 4 days before the bloom falls off. And that's it. And then if there was a bloom progression, right, if this was a bud, and then once the bud duration elapsed, it would turn into a flower. This ID here would become what was next. But we're not doing that here. So again, this is the ID from that bloom in the plant. So essentially we can tie this to the layer, the visual, and then we fill in minimum and maximum for every time it blooms, and then the duration of the bloom. So what will happen in the game, when this starts, it'll pick a number between 3, 4, and 5. It'll wait that many days, the bloom will come up, it'll last 3 to 4 days itself, and then it'll immediately pick another number between 3 and 5 for the next bloom to show up, and then it'll just kind of repeat that cycle. Okay, so that's bloom 1. Bloom 2 is the same process, bloom 2. We need the ID here, so we're going to go back to this. We're going to find bloom, this bloom number 2. I can either select in here and Control C, or I can click the copy button and then go back down to known plant database. Find bloom number 2 here, bloom 2. We're going to, I accidentally clicked the new button there, I don't want that. So we're going to paste in what I copied from the prefab. And again, the next piece to do here is fill in how long this one lasts. And I'll just pick, again, 3 to 5 days it'll bloom, or actually maybe it comes after that. So maybe the first bloom, we want to stagger them a little bit. So let's say this one is between 4 and 7 days, this one comes on. And then it again lasts for 3 to 5 days before it goes away. And that should be all we need. You could check on this box here if you need the plant to be healthy to count a day. So say it was sad for a whole day, or it didn't, or was lacking water, then if you checked on this, it wouldn't count that day as a day toward blooming. So if it was 4 days that it had picked and it was sad for a day, well, it would just skip counting, so it would turn out being 5 days. I'm going to leave these unchecked, so it'll just bloom regardless of its health. The rest of this stuff here, next bloomed after, this is all used as the game is being played, so they don't need to be set here at all. These are really just kind of placeholders for what's used at runtime. And that should be it. That should be it. I save this, and we're done. And then let me play the game. So now if I go back into the room and I place this plant over here, we can just hang out and watch it. So then if I go to and actually there it is. It's about midnight, and you can see the bloom came up at the nighttime phase. So we'll have it during the day, and that's the first of the 2 blooms. There it is. Very cool, all nicely animated and awesome. So then if we speed up time for this day, we can go the night, and hopefully, if I change that correctly, we should have the second bloom midnight tonight. Okay, so that's what we did to get that in there, and thankfully it's not terrible once you get it all rigged up and good to go. So there's our bloomed out African violet, and then those will last for a few days, and then they'll go away, and we'll keep cycling around like that. That's it. Maybe not. Maybe I didn't count it right. Okay. So I went ahead and fast forwarded in time. So hopefully after the sun comes up, this next time, this violet here should have its first bloom. And then if that was successful, and then we wait another day, it should have the second bloom.